Good afternoon and welcome to Spectrum Television News at noon. I am Uyai Imam, coming to you live from the KWARA State Capital. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government launches Operation SAVANNAH Shield after 75 reportedly killed in KWARA terror attack. Health of Mother Earth Foundation and Peace Point Development Foundation convene renewable energy dialogue as host community raises alarm. In other news, Bangladesh Nationalist Party wins majority in first election since deadly 2024 uprising. We'll bring you the details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. We begin the news at noon with the nation's leader, President Bola Tinubu, who has described the legacy of former head of state General Murtala Mohammed as a lasting moral compass for Nigeria and the African continent in confronting today's political and economic challenges. Tinubu spoke through the secretary to the government of the Federation, Senator Jaja Kume, who represented him at the 50th memorial anniversary of the late military ruler. The president said Mohammed's courage, discipline and clarity of vision, despite his brief 201-day administration, secured his place among Nigeria's most distinguished leaders and continues to inspire Africa 50 years after his assassination. In a statement issued today by Special Advisor to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation on Media and Publicity, Yomi Odunuga, Tinubu noted that he did not hesitate to accept an invitation to serve as Grand Patron of the Memorial Conference and book launch after receiving a letter from former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is chairman of the Murtala Mohammed Foundation. Recalling Mohammed's famous 1976 speech in Addis Ababa of the Organization of African Unity OAU meeting, he said the late leader's declaration that Africa has come of age and should no longer take orders from any global power marked a defining moment in Nigeria's foreign policy. Away from that, Vice President Kashim Shettima has arrived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 39th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of African Union Heads of State and Government and the 30th General Assembly scheduled for February 14 and 15, 2026. According to a statement issued by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications Office of the Vice President, Stanley Mokocha, Shettima landed at the Bole International Airport, where he was received by Ethiopia's Minister of Innovation and Technology, Dr. Belete Mola, and the state's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Burhanu Sagai. Also on the ground to welcome the Vice President were Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Ambassador Dunoma Ahmad, Chargé d'Affaires at the Nigerian Embassy in Ethiopia, Ambassador Nasiru Aminu, as well as other government officials. The statement noted that on arrival, Tuga debriefed the Vice President on his itinerary for the summit, stressing that beyond the heads of state meetings, Shettima is expected to participate in high-level side events and hold bilateral engagements with political and business leaders aimed at strengthening Nigeria's diplomatic, economic, and strategic partnerships across Africa. Speaking with journalists after the debriefing, Tuga said the launch of the Regional Partnership for Democracy (RPD) is a strategic move designed to consolidate and strengthen democratic culture on the continent. He further emphasized that Nigeria was reaping benefits from its participation in the African Union process, citing the confirmation of the country as host of the African Monetary Institute and the African Central Bank, as well as Nigeria's nomination to the board of the bank. In a separate development, the federal government has intensified security operations across Nigeria's north-central region following terrorist attacks that left about 75 villages dead in the KWARA state. The renewed offensive, code-named Operation Savannah Shield, involves the deployment of military personnel, police units and National Forest Guards to reinforce security in vulnerable communities. This was disclosed in a statement by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, adding that the government is committed to protecting the lives of its citizens. The operation is backed by enhanced intelligence gathering and rapid response protocols. We head now to the Green Chambers, where the House of Representatives has moved to exclude 22 federal institutions from budgetary allocations over alleged lack of accountability. Among the affected agencies are the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, Federal Housing Authority, FHA, Standards Organization of Nigeria, SON, National Insurance Commission, NICOM, and the National Business and Technical Examinations Board, NAPTEP. Others include the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, the Council for the Regulation of Freight Forwarding in Nigeria, and the FCT Secondary Education Board, among other universities and colleges. Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts, Bamidele Salam, said the MDAs not only failed to properly account for public funds, but also refused to comply with legislative oversight. To security matters. Following the incessant attacks in parts of Plateau State, the Nigerian Army has reaffirmed its determination to sustain both kinetic and non-kinetic strategies to protect lives, property and livelihoods in the state as communities prepare for the farming season. The General Officer commanding GOC 3 Division of the Nigerian Army and Commander of Operation Enduring Peace, Major General Folonshaw Oyinlola, made this known during a strategic stakeholders engagements from Barkin Ladi local government area meant to ensure peaceful coexistence in the state. The Operation Enduring Peace, according to him, would intensify the aggressive clearance of criminal elements from their hideouts, ensure heightened patrols in identified flashpoints, and strengthen collaboration with other security agencies across the state, with a view to clearing all criminal elements out of the state. Oyinlola explains that these kinetic operations combined with non-kinetic initiatives are designed to deliver lasting peace and called on stakeholders to continue supporting the military in its efforts to ensure lasting peace is restored in Plateau. In another development, as Nigerians join the rest of the world to mark the 2026 Radio Day, on-air personalities and radio staff at TAF Media Group have spoken on the enduring significance of radio, describing it as a powerful voice that connects communities, shapes opinions, and provides comfort in difficult times. Speaking with our correspondent Wangfon Walter on this year's celebration with the theme, Radio and AI, others say radio remains the most accessible and trusted medium of communication, especially for grassroots audiences. Meanwhile, others note that it continues to serve as a platform for education, entertainment, and real-time management. Stressing on this year's theme, they acknowledge that while artificial intelligence is transforming content production and improving efficiency, it cannot replace the human connection, emotion, and spontaneity that define broadcasting. They added that technology should serve as a tool to enhance creativity, not substitute the authenticity and empathy that listeners value. Recall that World Radio Day is set aside by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization every February 13 to highlight the importance of radio as a medium that informs, educates, and unites people across the globe. In the meantime, stakeholders Community members and environmental advocates have called for an urgent halt to fossil fuel extraction activities in Ikode-Bidang, on our local government area of Akwa Ibom State, following a dialogue of renewable energy convened by the Health of Mother Earth Foundation (HOMEF) and Peace Point Development Foundation (PPDF). Our correspondent Esther Otoyo, who was at the event, completes the report.
Ikode-Bidang, one of the three villages of Onion East alongside Ikode-Bekpo and Ikodanang, serves as both a host and impacted community for ongoing fossil fuel exploration and production activities. Delivering a presentation titled Dialogue on the State of the Environment, the director of OMEF, Dr. Nimmo Basi, highlighted the ecological and social costs of fossil fuel dependence and urged affected communities to demand accountability while exploring renewable energy alternatives suited to their local realities.
The gas flare problem is very central because of the implications for human health, environmental health. They talk about skin rashes and breathing problems and the soup, but if this is not stopped, we're going to have even reproductive problems. We're going to have cancers, we're going to have blood disorders, birth defects, so many problems associated with gas flaring. The good thing is that the people have also told us what they're demanding. So we're going to pick up these issues and use them in advocacy. We're going to emphasize the fact that those responsible are held to account. That's the company that is destroying the environment and government that ought to do certain things for the people to live in a healthy environment.
Meanwhile, the Director of Green Concern for Development, Edem, in his presentation on environmental monitoring, emphasized the importance of routine environmental assessments and active community participation in tracking pollution levels and documenting evidence. Similarly, the coordinator of Peace Point Development Foundation, Umoiswaiko, outlined empirical methods for documenting environmental degradation and related health impacts, encouraging the community to systematically gather verifiable evidence that could be used to engage relevant authorities.
They are supposed to take ownership of the environmental management of their community. This community owner local government and Ikode-Bidang precisely is experiencing a new wave of oil extraction, and the community have been crying out. And for us as environmentalists, we want to encourage the communities to take monitoring and evidence documentation very seriously, because this will enable them to observe changes within their community, and which they can also equally begin to engage themselves to find out lasting solutions to their issues.
If there is an oil spill, we should have the picture of the spill with GPS camera, so that location will be captured. And we inform our officials, if you see it, please pick the sample. If you have a container, cook it, and when you come, label it and write the dates. By the time we present it to NOSRA for a test, the test will be able to detect who is the asset owner.
Residents of Ikode-Bidang lamented the intense noise and tremor caused by gas flaring, poor crop yields, a decline in fishing activities due to oil spills, and growing health concerns such as skin diseases, heat rashes, persistent cough, and other respiratory symptoms. They demanded compensation for livelihood losses and environmental damage, the provision of adequate health care facilities, and a renegotiation of the existing Memorandum of Understanding to properly address pollution and environmental harm.
Where they are doing the oil exploration in this community, you can go and see all the grasses, the crops were turned to brown color. The gas bearing material, and they said that they have to invite slumberers to come. In fact, everyone, the entire community was very polluted. As if that is not enough, this very gas bearing, that they just flare their gas. If you can breathe in, you will observe that the air itself is polluted, it's not fresh. So, ever since this happened, a lot of people have been falling sickness here. Even our water has been polluted, fish dried, fish died at the water. And if you check our crops, I can take you down, you will see that a lot of crops, nothing is functioning here any longer. So we've been suffering on this. And so therefore, we really use this medium to invite the government, both international agencies and others involved to come to our aid and to make sure they bring lasting solution.
Our aquatic life, our fishermen can no more fish.
Okay.
Our brothers and sisters, if you notice, we have rashes, a lot of rashes in their skin, affecting their eyes. It causes blindness. And you look at our occupation, which is farming. Most of us are into farming. We cannot plant and harvest good product, farm product. If you look at our roofs, you see that if you buy a zinc and put on your roof, within 3 months, it's gone.
Because they've been down here about six oil wells are here now. And exploration is still going on after this flaring. They are coming to Ikot to also flare. And what I have seen in this thing is when that, because this before they will start flaring this oil supposed to pass through pipes. But what I'm seeing here is that they are flaring this oil and they are loading this oil in trucks every night.
Also present at the event was the Director of Climate Change and Awareness, Akwa Ibom State Ministry of Environment, Ini Umo, who was represented by Emeti Atai. Esther Otoyo, Spectrum News.
Now to Africa. In a bid to lower high rates of gang violence and other crimes, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced he will deploy the army to work with the police. For Ramaphosa, the situation has reached a desperate level of urgency. He said organized crime is now the most immediate threat to the country's democracy, society and economic development. The South African leader added that there will be no impunity for acts of criminality and corruption. On the foreign scene, United States President Donald Trump has reversed the key Obama-era scientific ruling of greenhouse gases endangering public health. According to reports, the 2009 endangerment finding concluded that a range of greenhouse gases were threats to public health, becoming the legal bedrock of federal efforts to rein in emissions, especially Obama-era policy that severely damaged the American auto industry and massively drove up prices for American consumers. Meanwhile, the White House has called the reversal of the largest deregulation in American history, stating that it would make cars cheaper, bringing down costs for automakers by $2,400 per vehicle. Still on the foreign scene, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party (BNP) has secured a majority after the country's landmark elections. Reports say the win is a huge change of fortunes for the BNP's leader Tariq Rahman, who has been in self-imposed exile in London. According to the report, this is the first election held in the country since student-led protests in 2024 ended the 15-year rule of its increasingly autocratic leader Sheikh Hasina. Hasina's party, the Awami League, was banned from contesting the election. Still to come in the news. CAF to decide on WAFCON 2026 and AFCON 2027. Stay tuned for details of this and more in a moment. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Now to conclude the news on this hour. On our business news, the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments has unveiled plans to deepen trade facilitation and tighten policy execution in 2026, following a sharp rebound in capital inflows and export performance in 2025. According to the FMITI Outlook 2026, the ministry will focus on sustaining reform momentum while strengthening implementation frameworks to translate consolidation into sustained growth, exports and jobs. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduole, said 2025 marked a turning point in Nigeria's trade and investment trajectory. She added that the ministry curated a pipeline of over $5 billion in bankable projects, undertook more than 150 bilateral and investor engagements, convened 5 deal rooms and sector roundtables, including a domestic investor summit, and tracked over $50 billion in signed commitments from presidential engagements, with about 25% progressing towards implementation. On our health news, healthcare services at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Barnawa, Kaduna, have been disrupted following an indefinite strike embarked upon by 128 nurses over alleged unresolved welfare and career progression issues. The nurses, under the aegis of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, commenced the industrial action in recent days, accusing the hospital management of failing to address grievances said to have lingered for over 2 years. Addressing journalists, the NANNM unit chairman in the hospital, Nkereji Ukechukwu, said the strike became inevitable after several attempts to resolve the issues internally failed. According to him, the union formally wrote to the management at least twice last year to seek redress on critical concerns affecting nurses, but received no response. Still in health, the director of the National Center of Excellence for Sickle Cell Disease Research and Training, Professor Obiagadi Nodu, said early screening and continuous care significantly reduced under 5 mortality among children living with sickle cell disease. She said the lower prevalence of SCD among adults compared with children reflects early deaths caused by the absence of routine screening and standardized care. Nodu spoke in Abuja at the Nigeria Inherited Blood Disorders Leadership Forum. According to Nodu, the absence of universal newborn screening means Nigeria still relies on estimates rather than population-based data to determine the incidence of the disease. Now to the world of sports, where the Confederation of African Football (CAF) will take major decisions on the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations and 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations today. The CAF's executive committee will meet in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, to take decision as regards both competitions. The AFCON 2026 finals is due to be played in Morocco next month. However, a congested international calendar and doubts over the readiness of co-hosts Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda to stage a befitting 2027 AFCON may force the competition to be further postponed until 2028. Still in sport, Nigeria forward Peter Olayinka has joined competitor club Apio Nicosia on a free transfer. Olayinka signed a contract with Apio until May 2026. The 30-year-old was released by Serbian club Red Star Belgrade 4 months ago. Reports say the experienced striker will be desperate to get his career back on track after the period of inactivity. On entertainment news, United States-based Nigerian Afropop artist Cyril Dabos is set to serenade the airwaves on Valentine's Day with the release of his new single Body of Work. Produced independently, the song arrives with rhythms built for clubs, parties and repeat listens. While Body of Work may initially sound like a smooth ode to feminine allure, the artist insists the record runs much deeper. According to him, the song is both personal and symbolic, a journey of reflection of his growth and long-term vision as an artist. And that's all we have from this news bulletin. Do what folks on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTVLive.ng. This has been Spectrum Television News at noon. We are Amen. Thanks for watching. Good afternoon.